So you want to get into Gauntlet, you want that impulse cell really bad, and you need a build for your sword. Well, I've got you guys covered. Video, we're going to be covering the basic meta build for sword for Gauntlet, and I've made a couple tweaks to the build so that you guys can easily modify the build and keep running instead of having to switch things out depending on how the situation with you and your guild and the modifiers change during Gauntlet. So let's jump down in and check out this build. For the weapon, we're running with Edge of Tomorrow, and the main reason we're running Edge of Tomorrow is so we have the flexibility to take Overpower in and out of the build as necessary, as well as giving us the ability to switch Pulse out. For the cells in this, we're going to be using +3 Overpower and +3 Pulse. For the special, we're going with Valiant Overdrive, and the modifier we're going to be using is the Dynamic Blade Core. For the bond, we're going with Call of Dawn. This will give us +3 Cunning, as well as a 12% chance to attack twice. For the Omnicell, we've got Iceborne as the base Omnicell. I would recommend running Revenant or Discipline, depending on the structure of the fight, what modifiers are going on and stuff. For example, if you're running up against Push-Pull, I wouldn't necessarily be running Revenant or Discipline, because Push-Pull gives you lifesteal but constantly drains your health, and that healing debuff on Discipline is going to make it hard to keep your health up for some players that are unfamiliar with those fights. And then for Revenant, running it against Push-Pull or Exhaustion, you're going to run into some problems, because Exhaustion is going to reduce your damage based off of if you have any missing hit points. And then obviously Push-Pull draining your hit points while you're running Revenant is going to make it so you can't Revenant nearly as much as you normally would. So we're going for a default of Iceborne, and you can switch these Omnicells around with this build depending on which modifiers you're running into for that bracket of Gauntlet. For the Lantern, it is totally up to you. I'm using the Skarn Lantern as a placeholder in this particular build because you're going to want to switch it up. I would use Skarn in most cases unless you're running up against toxic shields. Then throw in a Pangar Lantern or a Shrike Seal or whatever you guys want. This is really up to you on this one. The main thing is we're going to be running +3 Catalyst for the base build of this, because I want this build to be able to take you guys past level 1, 200. This is going to get you pretty far into Gauntlet if your whole party is structured pretty well and you guys have the time to put in. Now, one thing I want you guys to keep in mind with this particular build is the Catalyst is not necessary. You can run Reuse, you can run Conduit, you can run Etheric Attunement depending on the structure of your party. But once you guys get past, say, level 100, 120 or so, and the content starts to get a little bit more challenging, you're going to want to start having more and more people run Catalyst over Reuse, Conduit, Etheric Attunement, etc. So just something to keep in mind. I've given this build as much flexibility as I can for you guys to be able to modify both the Catalyst, the Overpower, and the Pulse cell in this particular build, depending on the fight situation and how far into the Gauntlet you guys currently are. For the helmet, we're going to be running Dark Watch. This gives us +3 Cunning, and we're going to put a +3 Overpower cell in there. For the jacket, we're running Shravewing's Jacket. This is going to give us +3 Adrenaline, and we're going to be putting a +3 Endurance cell in there. For the gauntlets, we're going to be running Fiery Gauntlets. This is going to give us +3 Endurance, and we're going to put the +3 Pulse cell in there. And then for the boots, we're running Shravewing's Boots, which is going to give us +3 Adrenaline, and we're going to put +3 Catalyst in there. For the perk summary, we've got +6 Adrenaline. This is going to give us 3% damage for every 10 stamina we have missing. +6 Catalyst, which is going to give us 60% more tonic effectiveness and tonic duration. +6 Cunning, which is going to give us 10% critical strike chance, as well as 30% critical strike damage. Endurance, which is going to give us 100 more stamina, which is going to mean 30% more damage if we've got that 100 stamina depleted, which is going to be relatively easy to do, considering the behemoth is going to be constantly staggered, so you don't have to worry about saving that stamina for dodges, so you can heavy tack to your heart's extent with the sword. +6 Overpower, which is going to give us 40% more damage against staggered behemoths, which they should be for the majority of the fight. There's some fights like Chronivore or Rezakiri where you guys might struggle to keep the behemoth permanently staggered, but for the most part, it should be staggered most of the time. Then we've got +6 Pulse. The 5th hit of your weapon is going to be a guaranteed critical strike, as well as give you 15% more critical strike damage. Now, for the baseline version of this build, I am running Pulse, although in higher content and in content where you can run with more shields, because you're not running up against Toxic Shield, I would probably run Galvanize over Pulse. As long as you can keep your shields up, Galvanize should give you crits more often than every 5th hit when you're floating around 1,000 shields, so keep that in mind. The Pulse is in this build 100% by cells, so it's very easy to switch that out for Galvanize. You don't have to change out any of the equipment to do so. The other cell that you can kind of manipulate around depending on your party structure, say you don't have enough guildies that have anything but repeaters at 20 right now, and you need to pull them in so you guys get those guild rewards rather than just 2-manning it or 3-manning it with randoms and stuff like that. You can switch out the overpower cells for Knockout King to kind of compensate for having low stagger weapons or no stagger weapons like repeater in your party structure. You can either switch out one or both of the overpower cells for Knockout King. That is going to reduce your damage, but keeping the behemoth staggered is going to help the other party members that can't do stagger damage get more hits in on the behemoth. For the tonic breakdown, we are going to be running the Blitz tonic, which is going to give us attack speed, the Frenzy tonic, which is going to give us more raw damage, and then the Assault tonic, which is going to give us more stagger damage. You can switch out the Assault tonic for an Ether Drive tonic if you guys have a party full of stagger heavy weapons and you don't need that extra stagger damage, which could give you some more damage off of Skarn's Lantern or off of the Pangar Lantern or whatever lantern you decide to run. Now, normally in my build guides, I like to put some gameplay footage of the build, but these are kind of just your normal meta build. If you guys have questions about how to run the meta build, let me know in the comment section down below. If there's enough interest in it, I might make a build guide specifically for how to play the meta builds, which is going to be the adrenaline endurance kind of build synergy. And if you guys have questions about Gauntlet, feel free to leave those in the comment section down below too. And if you guys need some help with Gauntlet, your whole guild doesn't really understand what's going on in Gauntlet, I will have a Gauntlet guide right over here for you guys, and I will see you guys in the next video.